Good morning, everyone. How was last week? Better than the other weeks, I hear you say? Are you beginning to realize that there's not just one fruit on this tree? And they're all just as delicious? This is a massive apple tree. It's not just one apple. They're all just as delicious. Because we are all fruits of the same farmer. And a little bird tells me that the farmer will be coming here next week. Did that little bird tell you as well? So next week is the 100th sun. So 100 weeks of your relentless perseverance and dedication and devotion should not go unnoticed. And I thought it should be rewarded. So I don't know of a better reward to give a community, a group of people, you all, who have been so loyal to the sasana. And there are faces that have been here from day one. Then there have been others who have been brought along the way, along the journey, people who got onto the bus. What matters is not when you started, but that you're here now. And that you hang in there until we get to the destination, isn't it? So like I always say, it is you yourself who deserves credit for that. Yes, there's an environment here that attracts you here. You come here because there's something substantial that you gain to your lives, and you're beginning to, I don't think it's fair to say you're beginning to, I think you have already started to, or you have been experiencing a personal transformation. Going by some of the stories that you come and share with me every now and then, once in a while, that seems to be true, and it seems to be a common experience for many. So it's not just one person who has had that experience, but many. And that is great. It's wonderful. But it is not just the Swamin Wahanse who's doing this. It's all of you. This is a group effort. It's the community. So each and every one of you who have been there, either from the start or joined along the way, and are here today, you are the reason why these sermons have been such a success. This program has been such a success. I don't know, maybe tomorrow you'll say, enough Swamin Wahanse, 100 is enough. And then we'll pack up and we won't see you anymore. But for as long as the need is there within your hearts to aspire to the bliss of Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen, the Mahasangha is always prepared to serve. Because that is our duty. We are bound by duty. The moment we besieged these robes and the gift of ordination, it's a gift. That's why we say anukampang upadaya. Out of compassion, please bestow upon us this ordination. It's like being throned. That's the feeling that we get on the day. It's a duty that is bestowed upon us to not only walk the path, but to help others along the way. Because there's one phenomenon that is so true and has never been proven otherwise. That is, what you give is what you get. So Nibbāna has come to me because Nibbāna is what I have been giving ever since I found it. And the same would be true for you all as well. You can't see the number of heads from where you are, but I can. And each of them will have a story to tell. Perhaps somewhere on YouTube, somewhere on, TikTok, somewhere here, somewhere there, on Facebook or whatnot, you might have clicked on a random video and listened to a monk preach, and you thought, that sounds interesting. I want to go and see what that's all about. So then you decided to come here. And then you came in. You sat down. And then you were greeted by this noble community. And then you looked around and you realized that these words have had an impact on people's lives. You began to see that there are people here, loving, compassionate, thoughtful, generous. Just a short list of the words that would describe you. There are people here who have had that transformation and you wanted to have a piece of that. So you enjoyed being here. I agree, the sermons might have brought you here, but it's not the sermons that kept you here. It's the transformation that has been happening within you, as well as the transformation you have seen in the others around you. And that is the key, that is the real success of this initiative, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, there are many other fruits on this tree, and it is our duty and our job to try and cultivate this tree so that there are many, many more fruits. And those fruits can then be taken to other places, because each fruit has the potential to create another tree, right? Because in the fruit there are seeds. And wherever you take that fruit will bear seeds, and those seeds will grow into more trees, and then before you know it, there'll be a whole forest of giant trees. Do you understand the metaphor? So that is how the sasana will spread, one apple at a time. So thank you all for being part of that wonderful journey. So we are on the 99th. As I say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. But fortunately, it's not me doing next week's sermon. Like I always say, if I am Mona Lisa, then you should see the artist. So you will have the honor and the great privilege to hear from Guru Hamdru next week. He has very kindly agreed to grace this very wonderful setting and to talk to you. I think it's a way for him to acknowledge and recognize your devotion to Nibbāna. There's one thing I know about Guru Hamdru. One thing I've learned about him over the last more than 10 or so years I've associated with him. I think it's around 15 now. I've known him since his late time. And that is, he was born for Nibbāna. It took him a while to realize that, but from the moment that he did, he was so evident in everything he's done. He doesn't do anything unless it's related to Nibbāna. So the fact that he's happy and prepared to come and talk to this audience, because he doesn't preach outside the monastery. He used to, many, many moons ago. But one fine day it stopped. And ever since he has not preached outside the monastery, unless there are sermons conducted overseas. So on some occasions he travels. I think I've shared stories about that with you. But this is the first time, actually, after a long time, he's stepping outside the monastery to conduct a sermon. And boy, oh boy, that's to you lot. See, it's always merits that makes things happen. There's no you or I who does things here. No doer, just the done. Indeed. Cause and effect. So for such an effect to materialize, then the causes must be ready. And so the causes have been in the making over the last 100 or so weeks. And so then it's time. So next week then you will have the privilege of Guru Swami Nuhanse, who will be here to talk to you. So please do invite your friends, your colleagues, and anyone else who you feel will benefit from his talk. So don't just bring people along just because they have nothing better to do on a Sunday morning. Because I think that talk will be one of a kind. All his sermons are one of a kind. I've never heard him make the same sermon twice. But he speaks from the heart and he speaks to the heart. That much, I think anyone who's heard him speak will know. He has a no-nonsense approach. That's what I love about him. It resonates deeply. And he speaks to the core. So when he speaks, you can feel him. It's like, if you have been someone who's been on this journey, like fulfilling your paramita with all of us, right? When you hear his words, you will all of a sudden feel like, that's the voice that I'd been looking for all these years. It's the same story that we've heard from everyone who decided in the end to either ordain with us or become an anagarika with us. You talk to any one of them and they'll say, I heard this Asara Dumriya, or I heard this sermon, I heard Oba Kauda. You might have heard when you come to the monastery, those little profiles they play before the ordination. So here they hear this voice and they're like, that's the voice, it sounds so familiar. It's not magic. There's a certain vibe about that. So those who have been on this journey with us and those who are destined to cross the finish line soon and with us, so to speak, you will immediately sense that there is something in that voice, and not just the voice, but the essence of what he preaches. So that's why I say, please bring along those who you feel will benefit from from his words and his compassion. Because he always wants me to warn you about this. Because he says that he's a bit stern sometimes, and it can be very cutthroat. But that I feel is just tough love. You don't get much soft love from him, you get a bit of tough love from him, but he's our father. So my father was the same, my biological father, and so. But you'll get that. I think so. Therefore, if what he's always conscious about is, might there be people who might be offended? He's very conscious about that. Bless his heart, he's very conscious about that. We keep telling him, no, Guru Amadas, you don't need to worry about that. People will understand. I think it's because in the past, long time ago, there have been times where people have said, from the moment he starts, he's just been shouting at us. Why does he shout at us like this? Like, what have I done? Today's the first day we met. But that's only because he speaks to the heart, from the heart and to the heart. So, there you go, then the official invitation has been made. Anyone who you feel will benefit from his talk, please do invite them. And Rajagiriya College has been very kind to us because we expect there might be a larger audience. So I think there'll be this hall and the one adjacent, some opposite. So there'll be another hall where they can stream the sermon, just like we do when we take the smaller hall on the other side of the campus. So there may be more than this room can accommodate on the day. So it's like when you got into the bus, right? Some will be seated, others will be standing, holding on to the thing. So again, it'll be a day where you can make people feel at home, especially newcomers. I'm not going to prescribe how you should conduct yourselves because I never have done. You've always made them feel very comfortable. And I'm sure you will know what to do. If you see a new face, just make them feel comfortable, make them feel at home. And let's hope that if their merits permit it, they will decide to come another day. But they'll be disappointed because the next day it will be it won't be Guru Hamdru. Then we can tell them, yes, he's in the monastery. You get second best on the morning and you get the best in the afternoon if you just head 1.5 hours into Ingiriya. So that's on next Sunday. Right? So I'm sure you'll all be there. And alongside the 100th or the centenary sermon, we are going to make a slight adjustment to the day's event. So I'm just going to running through what's going to happen next week. And then I'll precept you. And then I'll preach the Dhamma. Actually, I won't be precepting you today. Someone very special will. I'll give you the story briefly in a moment. So the program is, now typically you offer alms at the end of the sermon, right? So we're going to do it one better next week. You see now, when we take alms after the sermon, we can't use the energy from the food to do the sermon, right? The sermon is already done. So what's better than that? So you can get more merits that way. You can actually offer before the sermon. So if you can offer before the sermon, then we can start utilizing the energy that you give us to actually do the sermon. So Guru Hamdru will be here along with a few more of us. So we'll have more than the usual number. But that's not suggesting that you should bring more than you normally do. What you bring already is enough for 10 of us. Right? So please don't bring any more than you normally do. I'll say that again. Please don't. Don't means do not. Please don't bring any more than you normally do. So those 1 inch square sandwiches, perfectly fine. Right? So just bring what you usually do, that usual quantity. You don't need to bring any more. What we will do is Guru Hamdran Wahanse and myself and maybe Sudasi Swami Wahanse, we will come on alms round. Because we worked it all out on your behalf. If we had all 10 of us going on alms round, then by the point the last Swami Wahanse comes, you'll have 1 grain of rice to offer him. And that won't fill your heart. That's the problem, right? But remember, it's not the quantity, it's the thought that counts, right? But you might feel, maybe not you, but newcomers might feel that way, that they have not offered enough, so to speak. So, but you usually bring enough for 3 people. So the 3 Swami Wahanses will take their, you can fill it up to the brim, but not for pockets, just to the brim. Actually, it's an avat to take more than to the brim. So it's an offense. Not a punishable offense, but it's a minor offense in the sasana. In fact, when we go on alms round, once the alms bowl is full to the brim, we can't accept any more than that. Why do you think that is? Well, it doesn't look very nice, does it? With a Swami Wahanse walking around with an alms bowl, with more than he can contain in an alms bowl, what would others think? What a greedy fellow this man is. I mean, clearly you can't eat all that in an alms bowl, let alone, the overfill. So, anyway, you can just bring enough for like you normally do, and we will take it into our alms bowls, and then we'll go and share it amongst ourselves. So you will be able to offer alms to 10 of us in the morning before the sermon. Now, that will require, though, for you to arrive a little bit earlier than you normally do. Is that okay? Just one Sunday? So you'll have to set your alarm 1 hour early, okay? Now it's okay here, but in some countries they have daylight saving time. So you have to get used to that. So next Sunday, please make sure you set your alarm 1 hour early. Otherwise you will have to bring alms food and we won't be able to take it. We'll be done with alms by that point. So then we'll start our alms round around 7. And then that will give us enough time to, 7:30? 7:30, right? Yeah. So you can get in by 7:30-ish, that will be enough time, and we'll start our alms round at 7:30. So that will give us enough time to start the sermon at 8:30 as usual. And then the sermon will be conducted by Guru Thero. And at the end of that, I'm sure you'll have lots and lots and lots of lovely things to tell him. So my request is not to do that at the end of the sermon next week, not immediately after the sermon. And that is because the Directorate of Gateway College have requested to have an alms offering of their own in the afternoon to the Swamin Wahanses. I think that's the least we could do for all they have given us over the last many months and a whole year and more, right? To have given us these facilities and to be able to come here, listen to the sermons very comfortably. Like I always remind you, there's someone watching out over there, making sure your cars are safe. That's the least we could offer them. So the Swamin Wahanses will be escorted to another hall where alms will be offered to them. And then at the end of that, you will be able to come and offer your pirikara and do what you want to do. Talk to Guru Hamdru or as you wish. Not long stories, but short stories. Because I say that because he has to head back again to the monastery because he has a Sunday afternoon sermon that starts at 2:30. It takes us about an hour and a half to get back, and it's going to be traffic at that time. So please ensure that we can leave by at least 1. So that's how the program is going to be for next week. I think that's pretty straightforward for everyone. So next week you will have a slide up on screen just to remind everyone what the program is, so you will know how the event's going to unfold. And is there anything else I've missed? Have I said everything? Okay. Everything clear? Clear as mud? Excellent. Okay, right. Then let's get on with our proceedings for today. So today it's not me who's going to precept you. It's a very special someone. This Swamin Wahanse, who you will have seen before, but not in the guise of a Swamin Wahanse, as an Anakarika Mahatya who used to come and set up the place and talk to you. Another one bites the dust. When is it going to be your turn? Great kings, emperors, royalty have kneeled in front of the Buddha. Peasants have kneeled in front of the Buddha. Beggars have kneeled in front of the Buddha. Gods divine, Brahmas have kneeled in front of the Buddha. The Buddha is the truth. There has to come a day in your lives, ladies and gentlemen, where you kneel in front of the Buddha. By Buddha, I mean the truth. You're all truth seekers, whether you know it or not. You're all truth seekers. You may realize that today, you may not have realized that yet. Either way, you're all truth seekers. And that is why the day you realize the truth, your search for the truth will stop. See, once you become an arahant, even if you tried, you couldn't continue in samsara. That doesn't make any sense, what I just said, because you wouldn't try. But there's only one exit for all sentient beings. Whether you're man or woman, black or white, whatever creed, race, religion, there's only one exit out of samsara. You have to return to your source. Different people will interpret this differently. What I mean by source. Some will say, yes, actually most will agree with me. They may have different interpretations of that. Some will say, by source, don't you mean God? Yes. You have to return to your source. Others will say, is that not to Mahabrahma? Yes. You have to return to your source. Others will say, is it not to pure energy? Yes. You have to return to your source. See, we have all taken a stroll from the mothership. But one day we have to go back. The sooner you're exhausted with samsara, the sooner you will decide to return. Do you remember one day I congratulated you for your perseverance and your determination when the Buddha gave up 2,500 years ago? You're still soldiering on? Shabash. The Buddha was exhausted with samsara. He was exhausted of it. He realized that there was no point in this. Every day, every night, just churning along, doing the same things over and over again. Once in a while, you just do something a little bit different, but you can't keep doing it again every day. You have to come back to it another time because you get bored of it. So then he realized that he has to go looking for the truth. He realized that he hadn't discovered the truth till then. Although he was a great prince, he realized that, no, I might have all the wealth in the world, and I'm the next king. Not just any old king, I'm going to be a wheel-turning monarch. But despite all that, and a loving wife, and a beautiful son, and anything and everything he could have asked for, wished for, hoped for, everything was just a wish away for him, wasn't it? But why did he renounce? Why did he take to rags? Why did he give up his golden plate and pick up an alms bowl? Why did he shed his royal attire and go into something like this? Just a rag at the time that he picked up from the cemetery and dyed it and bore it. And he went looking for the truth. Then he went to many teachers. You know the story. He went to many teachers. At the feet of each teacher, he was the most humble student. We're talking about the man who was to become king. He could have asked the teachers to come to him to the palace. That's not what he did. He realized without humbleness, without humility, nothing can be achieved. So he went from teacher to teacher, laying his life at their feet. He was not just a student at their feet. He laid his life at their feet and he said, I'm here for nothing more than the truth. So dear teacher, if you are someone who has realized the truth, please teach me. And I will learn everything that you know. And I will master it. Don't spare me anything. Just teach me. And so he learned. He learned from many teachers and still he was not content. So ultimately he realized, I'm going to have to do it on my own. So with nothing more than an instinct that told him, you can do this. Like what you tell me when I come on arms round. An instinct that guided him. All that perfections that he'd been perfecting as a bodhisattva. For many countless eons he'd been doing that. Those instincts guided him. So there was a voice in his mind that said, yes, this is the time. You can do it now. It's this life. So fear not, go forth. Pick a safe place to sit and do it on your own. So guided by no voice other than his own, because the 5 ascetics deserted him. Actually, he deserted them. Because he was a hermit with them. You can imagine what a wonderful and beautiful human being he must have been. This is the life in which he is about to become a Buddha. You couldn't have met a more humble, more decent, more wonderful human being than the Bodhisattva. This side of a Buddha. There couldn't have been another. So he strived with the 5 ascetics, but then ultimately he realized, this ain't gonna work either. This is not gonna work. All this austerity is not going to work. I've inflicted as much pain as this body can physically bear, and any more pain and this body is going to break. Do you ever stop to realize that all that was on our behalf? Does it ever cross your mind that all that was on our behalf? Because this is a man who at the feet of the Lord Dipankara, many Buddhas before, he had the opportunity to attain to Buddhahood, an Arahanta Buddha, and all suffering would have ended there. All suffering would have ended there. Because you don't have to become a Supreme Buddha to end suffering. You can either become a Supreme Buddha, a Pacceka Buddha, or an Arahanta Buddha. The easiest among them is an Arahanta Buddha. Because when you become an Arahanta Buddha, you follow in the footsteps of a teacher. What better way is there to get anywhere than in the footsteps of a teacher? Teachers in the house? You know what I'm talking about. Those who have benefited from the guidance of a teacher, you know what I'm talking about. So all of us know what I'm talking about. We've all had teachers. And we still have. The fortunate among us. So with every opportunity that he had at the feet of the Lord Dipankara to attain Buddhahood, he renounced that as well. So when asked, what is it you wish for? I wish to become a Supreme Buddha like yourself. It is for that I make this offering to you. What offering did he make? Once again, he offered his life at the feet of the Lord, the Buddha at the time. Because they were going somewhere and there was a tranche that they had to cross. There was a trench they had to cross. So he laid his life down, he laid himself down and said, may I be your bridge, walk over me. That is my offering. May the Buddha walk over me. And may this be my offering to the Buddha. So when the Buddha inquired, what is it you wish out of making such an offering? This is almost an ultimate offering. What do you wish out of this? Only to become a Supreme Buddha like yourself, Venerable Sir. So the Lord Dipankara, he looked into this man's future and he prophesied. In the future, he will also become a Supreme Buddha. So it was uttered. It is not because the Lord Dipankara said so that the Bodhisattva went on to become a Buddha. He was already getting there on his own. Because Buddhas don't create futures. They foresee the future. They don't create it. So he said, yes, you will go on to become Supreme Buddha. And then from there on, till the last life, as Vesantara, the penultimate life of the Buddha. He sacrificed life and limb, ladies and gentlemen. Not a drop of blood did he spare. Not an ounce of energy did he spare. Not his wife, not his children, not his friends, not his life. Nothing did he spare. Because he wanted not only his own salvation, but that of all other sentient beings. Particularly those who would come in the era that he became Buddha, or he would become a Buddha. Meaning, he was thinking about whom? Whom? Us. What you don't remember though, during that time as a Bodhisattva, he would have done many offerings of various sorts. Given to the poor, given to the needy, given to the clergy, help the old, help the sick, help the feeble, each time making only one determination. May I attain to Supreme Buddhahood. Why? Not only for myself, but for all sentient beings. Each time he would make that determination. Just like today, when you invite the Swamin Wahanse and you offer the betel leaves, you say, Swamin Wahanse, please help us across the ocean of samsara. As you wash the Swamin Wahanse's feet, and you make a determination, please, may by the merits that I earn out of this, I be able to cross the ocean of samsara. As you hold the Muthukude, as you offer a gilampasa, as you offer a glass of water, or prepare the seat for a Swamin Wahanse to sit, and you make that determination. As you offer refreshments to each other, whatever you do in the name of the sasana, and you make that determination for yourself, the Buddha did it, but slightly differently. Or the Bodhisattva. It was not just for himself, it was for all of us. Why do I say that? Because had it been just for himself, he very much had that opportunity. Many, many, many lifetimes ago. But that he gave up. That's what I mean, ladies and gentlemen, a Buddha is no ordinary being. A Buddha is no ordinary being. It gives me the greatest pride and honor to be a man today who at least tries to walk in his footsteps. There aren't boots that I can fill. No man in his sane mind would ever even try that. But it gives me great honor just to even try to bear this robe that the Buddha bore, just to see if it fits. You know, like when you get into your father's shoes when you were a younger one, you remember? Or your mother's slippers or your father's shoes, right? You got into those and you just tried it on for size. Now how did that make you feel? Made you feel very grown up, right? And you'd pick up his suitcase or his briefcase. And if you had a grandfather at the time, maybe his walking stick. It was more like a poking stick for you at the time. And it made you feel like, it made you feel good. So that's what the Swamin Wahanse feels. I can feel that. And that is why he invites you. Because a great man many, many, many years ago, many eons ago, gave up his own freedom, his own salvation, so that we could take this opportunity and achieve the same enlightenment that he did for himself. See, there's no one enlightenment for the Buddhas and another one for us. It's the same experience. It's really remarkable. Like the work of a Buddha. The other day I was talking with one of my Swamin Wahanses. during a teachers' meeting. And we came up with this analogy. Just imagine there's a destination that we all had to get to. And imagine we were all trains, but now what do you need? You need tracks, you need rail tracks, right? The Buddha is someone who saw the destination. He was a train, but there were no tracks at the time. So what did he have to do? He had to lay down the tracks all by himself so that the tracks would guide him to the destination. Many a time he would make a wrong turn. Many a time there would be a steep hill. Or a gaping hole. And in those instances, he had to do something about it because there was no one to ask. There was no one to guide. There was no one to take instruction from. So all that he had to do himself. But in the end, somehow, he laid down this track. And then, he didn't stop there. The first two occasions, the Mara came and invited him to renounce his life, to give up his life faculty. The Buddha refused. Once, not once but twice, the Mara invited the Buddha, enough, you've become a Buddha now, go. That's what the Mara said. Go, will you? You've become a Buddha now, what more do you want? Stop messing with my world and with my people. See, in the Mara's mind, you are his people. That's what the Mara thinks. The Mara thinks that you are his people. So the Mara said, don't stop messing with my people. They want to enjoy. They want to have a good life. They do good things. From time to time they do bad things. But then they learn from their bad things and they do more good things and they go to the heavens, they go to the Brahma worlds, they come back to the human world, then they go back to the animal realm and they just ups and downs. That's how things work. Leave my people alone. This is the Mara to the Buddha. See, the Mara thinks that you are his people. How does that make you feel? You can have Mara as your surname, like whatever your first name is, and the first surname you got from your father, and then Mara. Or you can have it at the front of your surname. That's your origin. So if you are Vikram Singh, you are Mara Vikram Singh. But the good thing is, we are all united globally. Everyone in the world has that surname. How's that? That's a nice thought, isn't it? Something unites us. Something unites us. That's a nice thought. Whether you're American, Australian, Singaporean, or Sri Lankan, or Pakistan, or Indian, something unites us. We all have the same surname, Mara. So that's what the Mara thought. The Mara thought that you are all his children. You are all his peasants, and he was the king, and he was to rule this world, and you were there to enjoy the ride, doing whatever you're doing right now. Because this is the future that Mara envisaged for you. Forget the Dhamma for a second. Growing up, or being born, educating yourself, going to school, going to college, going to campus, getting your qualifications, enjoying your life, having friends, growing up with family and siblings and all that, and eating what you like, drinking what you like, seeing what you like, going places, entertaining yourself, getting married, having children, right? And then suffering when they misbehave, suffering when things don't work out in your favor, suffering when you have to lose people, the people that you love, and suffering when people you don't like start to come into your life, and suffering because of debt, suffering because of pressure, suffering because of anxiety and stress, once in a while committing suicide, but then coming back again, right? That's the rigmarole the Mara wanted for you. Where are we now with that? Right on form, eh? But that's what Mara wanted for you. See, 99% of what you do in your lives, ladies and gentlemen, is not what the Buddha wanted for you. That's the thing. 99% because I leave 1% for Sunday mornings. See, I'm nice like that. These are generalizations, okay? So don't anyone be offended. You know I'm not here to offend. I am the student of Guru Hamthro. But this is the life that Mara wanted for you. You know, if you got married, do you think the Buddha wanted that for you? I'm not just talking about your life because I've walked the same path, right? We are all from the same garden. I was also a tree there, right? And then I came across the Dhamma. But until such time, I got married. Do you think the Buddha wanted you to get married? Who wanted you to get married? Who? Who? Speak up. Mara, say your great-great-great-grandfather's name with pride. Who wanted you to get a good education? The Buddha? The Buddha? No. Who did? Mara. Who wanted you to go out and eat at nice restaurants? And a high tea once in a while? And to go sightseeing? And go to the movies and go to the dramas and subscribe to the latest blockbusters and watch all that. Entertain yourselves. Play snake and ladders. Who wanted you to do all that? And have a nice hot chocolate every Sunday? Or when it's raining outside and it's cold, for a bit of comfy comfort. Who wanted you to do all that? The Buddha? Then? Mara. So let's work out, let's see who are we more loyal to? The Buddha or the Mara? Because you can't be loyal to both camps. You're either in this camp or you're in that camp. Right? And then eventually, that will tell you where you're going to end up. Because your future is determined by not by the future. Your future is determined by today. Whichever camp you're in today will determine which camp you're going to be in the future. So what do you do normally when you have a long weekend? Okay, not now. Because I think a long weekend last time you were all here. So I can't really now mock you for things like that. You're beginning to be loyal to the Buddha. So I have to be careful what I say. But before the Dhamma happened to your life, what would you do on a long weekend? Partying, friends, barbecues, singing, dancing, going out, inviting people around, party, right? This is shopping. Sorry, I forgot that. Ladies, sorry, apologies. Shopping, more shopping. And if you have some money left at the end of that, more shopping. So who asked you to do all that? Buddha or the Mara? Buddha or the Mara? Mara. So you are Mara Minissu. But hey, it takes one to know one, right? Of course. So whatever I throw at you, I'm only boomeranging things at you because they come right back at me. The first 25 or 6 or years of my own life was spent like that, just like that. I was a fool. But then, we had an altar at home, a little Buddha statue. I would put flowers there and a little bit of water, right, pan in the morning, and light a handunkura, joss stick, and then say Buddhan Sarnang Gacchami, Dhamman Sarnang Gacchami, Sanghan Sarnang Gacchami, and then I would do Maran Sarnang Gacchami. My words betrayed my actions. They did. My words betrayed my actions. I said one, but I did another. So no wonder happiness was so alien to me. Contentment was so alien to me. I was a stranger to happiness. So much so that if I met happiness face to face, I'd be like, who are you? And I'd walk away. That is because I was behaving as if I was a child of the Mára. Mára is not necessarily Wasawarthi Mára. That's one kind of Mára. There are several types of Mára. There's a Mára Divyaputra. He's a god who lives in the Wasawarthi Divyaloka. Sorry, not a Wasawarthi Divyaloka, but he's a Vasavat. There's a clan of gods. They're called the Wasawarthi. Sometimes he uses this word like lovingly, like to when you want to tell children off, right? He's a Wasawarthya. So on. When you want to say that someone's very mischievous, doesn't play ball, is not obedient to you, you say Wasawarthya. It's a clan of gods, the Wasawarthi. So the Mára that we speak of, the one who tried to bother the Buddha or the Bodhisattva as he was trying to become a Buddha, he's one of those deities or gods. But he has a clan. The thing is, people there, or not people, but gods there, they enjoy the good life because they enjoy the merits that they have cultivated themselves in previous incarnations in samsara. What they don't realize though is merits also run out. So but once their merits run out, they will also be back either as humans, if not worse. But their lifespans are so incredibly long, it doesn't feel like it's going to ever end. So long. But that's not to say that it never comes to an end. So, and he also thinks that he's God to all people. For some reason he thinks that. He's a god of sensuality. He's bestowed himself with that title. So then, he does not like anyone interfering and intervening with his people who are here in this sensual world and enjoying sensual pleasures and sensual delights. That is exactly what the Buddha tried to do. The Buddha came into the sensual world as a human being, he became the Buddha, and then he started to preach. And he said, this sensual world is of no essence. This sensual world has nothing to offer you. This sensual world is merely made of sights, sounds, smells, tastes and touch, which are all fabrications of your own minds. So whatever sensual pleasures you experience, they are not products of the outside world, they're all in your own little worlds that you create in your own minds. So wake up was the Buddha's calling. The Mára didn't like that. That is why not once but twice he tried to intervene and he said, Buddha, you become the Buddha now, please can you leave? Otherwise I'm going to take things into my own hands. And the Buddha said, Mára, you do whatever you want, but I will leave when I'm ready. Because this world still needs someone to pave the path to Nibbāna, as in those rail tracks. And not only that, it needs people standing along these tracks so that when someone tries to travel these tracks, there will be those who are there to guide them. So that if it starts to derail, for instance, or ever, then there'll be someone to put them back on track. Who was he referring to? The Sangha, indeed. So if Buddha is the destination, the Dhamma is the tracks, the Sangha are those who stop you from derailing and put you back on track. Remember, the Sangha cannot give you Nibbāna on a plate. That is why I cannot do that. All I can keep you is faithful and loyal and on track by constantly reminding you of the truth and your purpose and to be faithful and loyal to the truth. That is what we do with these sermons. If you ever ask me, Swaminatha, why did you choose to become a monk? There's only one reason, ladies and gentlemen, and that one reason is, at the monastery, I'm constantly reminded of my purpose. Every sight I see is a reminder of my purpose. See, at the monastery, we don't have anything that screams out to me sensuality. Go enjoy sensuality. There are no billboards, there are no TV programs, there are no newspapers, no magazines to lure like they do with you. In the sensual world, there's all of that, right? No one invites me to parties. I must be so boring. When was the last time you invited me to a party? See how ungrateful you are? I mean, the last thing you can do, the least you could do is invite a good friend to a party, right? I don't even get an invitation. At least they say, Swaminatha, here's the invitation, you don't have to come, but here's the invitation. I don't even get that courtesy. Huh? No one invites me to a party. No one invites me to go watch a movie. No one invites me to a club. No one invites me to the pub. No one says, hey, Friday night, Swaminatha, shall we? Just around the corner. Drinks on me. No one invites me to any of that anymore. Every waking moment, either my teacher or a messenger of my teacher will ask me, have you observed your precepts? Have you made your confessions? Have you gone to the Nyaya discussions? Have you had your teachers' meeting? Are you doing your pratyaviksha before you take your meal? These are the constant reminders. When I go to the Velimalua, everywhere there's a Dhammapada stanza. Just the sight of it itself reminds me, are you on track? Are you on track? The Dhammapada as a book cannot take me to Nibbāna, but it will put me back on track. See, for you and I, ladies and gentlemen, there are no two paths to Nibbāna. For all of us, there's only one path to Nibbāna. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. So how come some get there sooner than others? Let me put it in another way. Let's bring the analogy again. How come some trains get to the destination sooner than others? Shall I draw it on the board so it makes it clear for you? Here's the destination that we must get to. Track, right? Both these tracks lead here. Then there's a train. Let's imagine this is the train. This is the train. Right. Volunteers, please. Two. Right. So this is the train. This is the train. On track. Gets to its destination. Here's another train. Oh, track. Back on track. And then tries again. And then after a while, someone says, hey, will you marry me? Yeah, sure. I thought you'd never ask. So this is again Mara. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. Anya hila bhupanisa, anya Nibbāna gamini. The path to pleasures and wealth and the path to gain is one. The path to profit is one, but the path to Nibbāna is another. So what happens every time you derail? When are you going to get your destination? Now you're back with Mara. These are all Mara paths. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. This is Nibbāna. So, to get to Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is be on track. Be on the Noble Eightfold Path. Remember, there's nothing that you actually have to do. The track takes you to Nibbana. See, other than churning along, a train does nothing else, right? To get to the destination. There's fuel that's burning and giving the train energy and power, and the train just keeps moving along. So what takes it to this destination? The track takes it to its destination. That's why the Noble Eightfold Path takes you to Nibbana. All you have to do is what? Remain on the path. Whenever you're doing yoniso manasikara, in other words, whenever you're contemplating anicca, dukkha and anatta, you're on the path. Imagine this is your mind. Whenever you're contemplating anicca, dukkha and anatta, you're on the path. Whenever you go nicca, sukha, atta, in other words, whenever you start conceptualizing entities, watching a movie, listening to music, having a slice of cake, not for nourishment, but because you enjoy it. Whenever you seek those sensual pleasures, we touched on this last week briefly, or the week before that, the appeal of a lay life, because you want sensual pleasures, because the brahmachari life is not what you're interested in, not your cup of tea. You don't want to do bad, you don't want to do evil things, that I understand, yes, but you want a sensual life. So you see, the Mara doesn't want you to do bad things, he doesn't want you to do evil. He's happy with you doing good things, as long as you remain bound to your sensual lives. This is the thing. So whenever you go off track, you're back on the into the world of sensuality. You're taking a detour. You're stepping outside of the path to Nibbana. So every time you keep doing this, you have to come back again. Most times, at the moment you do this, ladies and gentlemen, this track takes you long and winding roads, right? And then typically you have to come back further down than you started in the first place. This is what most people do. They go round and round in circles. So now why did I become a monk again? At the monastery, there is no opportunity to do that. There's no opportunity to do that. Every association I have is a noble association. I don't have friends that invite me to go to the movies. I don't have friends that invite me to go out for a nice meal. I don't have friends that invite me to read the newspapers or watch the next, TV series. But these are what your friends always invite you. It's not your fault really. It's the association that you have. So why did the venerable monk leave his lay life and become a monk? Because he wanted to remain in noble association. That's why. That's why. Because he wanted the Sangha who always stood either side of this. This is what the Buddha took time to lay down. The Sangha, who are stood either side of this track, right? And they're constantly saying, hey, no, not off track, back on track, back on track, back on track. This is what the noble hearts children at the monastery get. And they're only 6 years old, only 7 years old. It doesn't matter what your age is, whether you're 6 or you're 60. What matters is whether you're on the track or off the track. On the track gets you to Nibbana, off the track keeps you going round and round in circles in the world. So then if you ever have a question, see, I'm helping you answer your own questions. If you ever have this doubt, Swaminathan said, why am I still in samsara? I've been coming to the last 100 sermons. I've been listening to all your talks. So why am I still in samsara? Here's the reason. Although you listen to the Dhamma, listening to the Dhamma and understanding Dhamma is one. Practicing the Dhamma is another. Sunata, dhareta, charata dhamme. There are 3 components that have to be fulfilled for you to get to Nibbana, ladies and gentlemen. Sunata is to listen, dhareta is to bear, to understand, charata is to practice. Unless you do the third, which is practice, you are not going to get to Nibbana. Sorry, that's not my choosing. It's just the way it is. It's like any other thing. Take math, for instance. Take math, for instance. How do you get good at math? Come on, that's not a tough one. How do you get good at math? Practice. But say, someone writes down these numbers. Before you ever learnt addition, this was just a work of art, wasn't it? It was just a picture. This made no sense until your teacher taught you addition. So then you realize that this had a special significance. It meant to add. Make sense? Until then, this didn't make any sense. You're like, what's that cross there? Are 4 and 5 Christian or something? You might have asked. If the cross you only identified as a symbol of Christianity, then you would have, why is the cross doing there? But then you realize, no, this is a symbol that means to add. What is to add? Then the teacher taught you the concept of addition. It's where the sum of these two numbers are derived by joining these two. And then you worked out. Now, if without you learning what addition is, this would still look like a work of art, wouldn't it? It would just be a picture. You just see 4, 5, cross, 2 horizontal lines, and 9. So first your teacher taught you the concept of math. Then you understood the concept. So to listen was to sunata. To understand was to dhareta, to bear. What did you do after that? Practice. What makes perfect? Practice makes perfect. So then, your teacher gave you how many more of these to work at home? A couple more? How many more? Hundreds more. Countless of these sums your teacher gave you so that you could practice addition. See, you only needed to be taught once. If you got it, you got it. Yes? You only need to be taught once. If you didn't get it, then the teacher would teach you again. So you can keep on doing sunata until dhareta. Neither. Isn't it? I'm going neither. You keep on doing sunata until you dhareta. So after dhareta, which is to bear, which is to have understood, what's next? Charata. Practice. Now if you're good at math today, is that because your teacher taught you well? Think carefully. If you're good at addition today, right, say you're really, really, really good at addition today, is that because your teacher taught you well? Let me put it this way. Is that the only reason? Huh? Or is it because you understood it well? Is that the only reason? Then what else? You practiced. How many addition sums did you practice before you realized that you were good at addition? Countless, right? So what is needed in more quantity? What needs to be more numerous? Is it the listening to it, the understanding it, or the practicing it? Practicing. Which one requires more energy? Sunata, dhareto, charata. Which one's going to take more time? Sunata, dhareto, charata. Practice. Which one takes more deliberation? Sunata, dhareto, charata. Which one requires you to do more effort on your part? Which one? Practice, 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 ladies and gentlemen, practice. Now do you understand that I can't make it happen for you? That's why Sunday mornings alone is not going to get you to Nibbana. This is only the gateway to Nibbana. I stand at the gate. I'm the gatekeeper. If I see you wandering here, there and everywhere, and I see you lingering around the gate, I say, hey, what are you doing, mister? Come on. Come, yeah, that's it, you can do it. Come on, yeah. Yeah, enter. Right, there's the path, now go. That's what I do, and my job is that of the gatekeeper. I make you walk through the gate. But making you walk through the gate does not mean, what? Getting you to the destination. To take the path from the gate towards the destination, up the hill. That I can't do that for you. Because that is practice. Now what happens at the monastery? What happens when you are in noble association? Here's what happens. There are people who are stood along the path to Nibbana, constantly telling you, hey, walk, don't stop, carry on, don't stop, carry on, persevere, don't give up, wake up, come on, move. You've already slept more than 6 hours, wake up. So we can't have a bit of a lie-in. Because that's not what we came into robes for. Not to have a bit of a lie-in. Let's say it's a cold day. What do you think we do at the monastery? Snuggle up. We cocoon ourselves into our robes and take the other robe as well, just for a bit of extra warmth, and we sleep a couple of extra hours. You think that's what we do? What if it's a hot day? It's too hot to practice. What if it's a rainy day? Sometimes, there are like strong winds and the whole Valley Manuva is just like a pool of water. Because they are open on all 4 sides, the Valley Manuva, and when there are strong gales, the whole place becomes, it's wet completely. It's like a pond in there until we drain the water out. What do you think we do on those days? We go back into our kutis and wait until the sun comes out? Is that what we came into robes for? So we practice when the sun is out. You think we do that? Because does it matter whether the sun is out or the clouds are out, whether it's dark or night, or dark or day or night? Every time there's a chitta that arises in our minds, and it's either on track or off track. When the sun's out or when the sun's not out? That's the thing. That's the thing, folks. That's the thing. See, your chittas arise and pass away regardless of what the weather is, regardless of season, regardless of the time of the year or the time of the day. AM or PM, chittas arise and pass away. And the chitta is either on track or off track. So what escape do you have? You're either on track or off track. If you're on track, you're on the way to Nibbana. If you're off track, you're going back out of Nibbana. That's it. And every time you go off track, you have to walk the same way back. Typically what happens is, there are like little, let's call them milestones, or shall we say segments. Okay? And these segments you pass along the way. Now if you pass a particular segment of this track, the worst that can happen is you go back to the beginning. After you pass this stage, the worst that can happen is you go back to the beginning of this stage. You don't drop beneath that. But still, let's say that took you 3 years to get from here to there. Okay? In the span of 2 days, you can undo everything you did in the last 3 years. Because in those 2 days, what you did was watch movies, go to the beach, spend time with your friends, had a party, danced, sang, ate, enjoyed. It undoes everything you did in the last 3 years. You will go back as far as this. Now, the thing is, these are the various noble stages to Nibbana. Sotapanna, Sakrudagami, Anagami, and Arahat. That's why you can't go below the stage you have arrived at, or you have just gone past. But if you haven't become a Sotapanna yet, then there's no limit to how far down you can go, all the way back down to the 4 great hells. That's why the most fundamental foundation that any human being, any sentient being must lay down for themselves, ladies and gentlemen, is the first stage of enlightenment. That of the stream enterer. In other words, that is to get onto the track. Tell me, there's a train over here. When is it going to get to the destination? There's a train over here. Here's the track, okay? Here's the track, and there's a train over here. When is it going to get to the destination? What if we put more fuel into it? We put nuclear fuel into it. How about that? We don't let it stop. We run it 24/7. Let's put a few more workers. They put more coal and all sorts into it. When is it going to get to this destination? Have you been in the situation where you race a car but not in gear? Yeah, what happens then? And so it won't move, right? So what must you do? Press on the accelerator a little bit more, right? What's the only thing that will happen eventually? The engine heats up, or you run out of fuel, and the car seizes. That's what happens. That's why sometimes people ask, Swaminatha, when should I start meditation? To meditate is to travel on this path. So when should you start meditation? Once you enter the path. Until then, meditation is of no avail. It doesn't yield anything. Meditation is for stream enterers. Until then, you can cultivate some values, maybe settle your mind a little bit, right? And maybe contemplate on what you might have understood, but you cannot actually travel this path, anicca, dukkha and anatta, because your understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta is you attaining to Sotapanna stage. That's the first noble stage. Is your complete understanding, well, I wouldn't say complete because that's the nature of an arahant, but your first realization of anicca, dukkha and anatta, the nature of this world. Because that initial realization itself is sufficient for you to understand that there's no point continuing life in samsara. Because all sensual delights, all sensual pleasures, these are mere mental fantasies. They're all creations of the mind. Once you realize that, ladies and gentlemen, why would you want to experience that from a bar of chocolate or a cone of ice cream or a glass of wine? When you know that it's all this deliciousness, all this sensual pleasure is all mind created, and it's not in the food or the sight or the sound or the smells that I associate with. If it's not there, why do I bother? That's the question you start asking yourself. So the first thing to do, first things first, is to get yourself onto the track. How do you do that? You need the gatekeepers. You need the gatekeepers. So the gatekeepers open the gates and they invite you. Come onto the track. If you want to call this a stream, they become a stream enterer. In this analogy, we've used a railway track. Just like all streams lead to the ocean, all tracks lead to the destination. So this can only happen when you're listening to the Dhamma. But not when your ears are listening to the Dhamma, when your mind is listening to the Dhamma. What's the difference? Shall I show you when your ears are listening to it but your mind isn't? What you look like? That's when your ears are listening to the Dhamma but your mind isn't. Or maybe when you have the sermon playing in the background and you're doing some work with someone, right? You're busy with someone, having a conversation with them or whatever, your mind is not tuned into it. So it's happening in the background, but you're not paying attention to it. Tell me, can you learn the math lesson taught by your teacher while you're asleep? Why do teachers hate it when students sleep in the class? I mean, they cause no trouble, right? I mean, it should be a teacher's dream, shouldn't it, teachers? Huh? When a child sleeps in the class, particularly the mischievous ones, because they cause no harm to anyone else. But why is it that teachers despise students sleeping in the classrooms? Because when they're asleep, it matters not how good the lesson is, right? They could be the world's best teacher, but if the student is asleep, only the ears are listening, but the mind's not. The mind's not. It's a time where you can hear, but you don't listen, because the mind listens and the ears hear. That's why they're called hearing aids. What are they not called? They're not called listening aids, are they? They're called hearing aids. When these things don't work, they're called hearing aids. So that's why you need to be alert during a talk. That's why you have to remain focused and not let your mind wander and go places and start having conversations. That's why I say switch off your mobile phones. Put them on silent. Because sometimes maybe it's that moment where the gateway has just been opened and someone is just about to step onto the track. And then in the background you hear Now what happens to this? What was that? And now again they are miles away from the gateway. So again what must we do? Come. Please come back. Come back. Come back. That's why we say, don't let your phones ring in a sermon. You do it out of You put your phone on silent out of compassion. See, then it gives you merits as well. Because it's a compassionate action. In that regard, this hall is perfect because you don't get much of the noise that's going on outside. If you were always bothered by the traffic, the sound of traffic, that would always distract you. This is almost a perfect place to be for a sermon of this sort. So is it okay to listen to a sermon while you drive? Yes, it's okay, but I don't know what the chances are of you entering the gateway, because your mind is not focused on that. Because it's not sufficient for you to hear it, you must listen to it. That's active, hearing is passive. So then with the help of the gatekeepers, they invite you, they talk to you, they preach to you, they convince you of the facts of anicca, dukkha and anatta. Once you realize, hey, the world is essenceless, meaningless, useless, futile. This journey of samsara is never going to get me to happiness. I will forever be suffering like this. There's only one way to end suffering, and that is to let go, to understand the Dhamma. The moment you come to that realization, that profound realization for the first time, that's the first time you have entered the track. That doesn't mean that you have journeyed on the track Any distance, it just means you have entered the track. Right, now that you're on the track, what has to happen next? You have to carry on. Who can do that for you? Tumme hi kiccang atappang akkataro tathagata. Patipanna pamokkanti mokkanti mara bandhana. Nato ojayati mara bandhana. The Buddha says, the Buddhas, in other words, his disciples, right, all of them collectively, the Buddhas, his disciples, whoever, the Sangha, can only show the track to you. They can only be the gateway to the track for you. Here's the path. Come on, come in, enter the stream. And once you're there, they can't handhold you to Nibbana. That you have to do on your own. So once again, let's go back to why we always invite those who can to come forth. Because once you're here, to be in the sasana, ladies and gentlemen, means to have noble association stood alongside the track, never letting you veer off, always guiding you. Yeah? Keep back on track, come on, back on track. Wake up, it's time to practice. Have you taken your meal? Did you contemplate? Were you mindful while you had your meal? Or did you just have it, with enjoying the deliciousness of the flavors and so on? Is that what you did? This is what we have. That's why every week we have a teachers' meeting with our teachers and with our students. So we review the week gone by and ask them, how were you mindful about this? Were there any thoughts that caught you off guard? Were there any sights that caught you off guard? Did you perhaps see a young lady, a young lass who walked in and who caught your attention? Were you disturbed by that? A teacher might ask a young monk. So if the monk is humble enough and loyal to his teacher, he would confess, yes sir, the other day we were down there for alms and there was this lady who came in and she reminded me of someone that I used to be with, someone I used to know in my lay life. And then those thoughts just completely took me into my time during my lay life, and I was fantasizing all sorts in my own mind. At that moment I was not able to be mindful. So the teacher says, okay, so how would you contemplate on it if it happened to you now? Tell me. And now this monk repeats how he would apply the concept of anicca, dukkha and anatta in that situation. Had he been mindful then, but he wasn't. It's fine. At least we do it retrospectively. So then do it at that moment. And now he gets some more practice. So if there's something wrong in the way that he would have applied it, the teacher corrects him and says, right, okay, do you want to try it another time? Next time, if it happens again, I want you to do it, be more mindful, and come back and let me know the results. See how much care is given? That is what you call TLC. That's the TLC we need, ladies and gentlemen. See now, how can I do that for you if I only see you on Sunday morning? I want to, but you don't let me. You might ask me, why am I so concerned? Why do I want to do this so much? Well, because what you do is what you get. I'm ever so grateful to my students and other monks at the monastery because they never come up to me and tell me, Swami, I would like to have a nice piece of cake. Where can I get some? Instead, here's what I might hear. Swami, I feel like I need a nice piece of cake. Please help me contemplate. They asked for help to contemplate, not to put it on a plate. But what do you go and speak with your family, with your friends? And what do they come and ask you? To contemplate? Or on a plate? That's the thing. So, a student comes and asks me, how do you contemplate? Then I teach them. I remind them. So as I do that, what's running through my mind? The Dhamma, right? So as I help, I am helped. See, nothing gives more instant results than the gift of Dhamma. Nothing is more instant than that. That's why that Dhamma, the gift of Dhamma, is such a beautiful gift. As much it is to the receiver as it is to the giver. So anytime I take a teacher's meeting, a student comes and asks me this question, this problem, some defilement or something they're dealing with, some anger or something they're working with. We are in the sasana. There's only one answer. Anicca, dukkha and anatta. This is because of jati. We remind them. But you ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, when you get angry and you go and talk to your people, by your people, I mean your friends, whoever, right? Or the psychiatrist. They say that's the best you can have, the psychiatrist. The other day, there was a young lady who came and said, Swaminatha, I've been feeling suicidal. I said, okay, so what help have you had so far? She said, I've been to the psychiatrist. Good. So I asked her, what did they ask you to do? He said, whenever I feel suicidal, take a book and write down how I feel. So I said, okay, how long have you been doing it? Well, I did it for the first 2.5 months, then I gave up. It doesn't work. I'm still having those thoughts and I don't know how to deal with them. I just feel like they don't understand me. So I said, what else did they ask you to do? One asked me to squeeze a ball, the other said go for a walk. These things just don't work, Swaminatha. They just don't understand me. I have this big void in me. I feel this burning pain within me. I don't know why they don't get me. Please, can you? She asks me. I said, okay, tell me your problem. Then I explained to her how the mind works. She was lost for words. I explained to her why she feels suicidal, how she feels suicidal, how the mind creates a sense of self, and then along with that all these attachments and desires, and when the mind feels that it cannot have what it wants, the mind feels like it's lonely, and it goes into a state of distress and depression, and that is why the mind suffers. And I explained to her how she is the architect of her own suffering. And no one else in the world is responsible for that. It's not your exams, it's not your parents, it's not your relations, not anyone who's responsible for any of your problems, doer. It's you who does it to yourself. And she got it. Many months of counseling. And how much do you think she spent there? And how much do you think she spent with me? What is the price for the best things in life? There you go. These are the gifts of the Buddhas. She said, please don't tell my parents. I never told them. I asked her, did you tell them? Who else have you shared this with? No one, Swaminatha, because they wouldn't understand me. If that was the experience I got at the psychiatrist, I can imagine what the others would tell me, so I didn't bother. I'm not suggesting that all psychiatrists would give the same advice, because I don't know, I've never been to one. Because I found my psychiatrist. He's called Guru Hamdra, you'll meet him next week. And he taught me how the mind works. All suffering is rooted in ignorance. Ignorance of how the mind works. So then what must all people be taught? Anyone who has a mind must be taught what? Anyone who has a mind must be taught what? Geometry. Huh? Then Pythagoras' theorems. Balancing complex equations? How about empirical and chemical formulae? What about derivative equations? That'd be nice, right? To anyone who has a mind? You know, from that to how to send a man to the moon, they teach them everything except for how the mind works. Baffles me. It baffles me how much we have lost in touch with who we really are. Anyone who's born with a mind, the first thing they must be taught as soon as they come of age and they begin to understand concepts is how the mind works. Because that you have throughout your life. Your car, not all the time. Half the time it's in the garage. The other time it's at the repair shop. Right? So you're only having it while you're driving it. But you learn more about how a car works than how the mind works. You've learned how to cook. I'm not saying it's not necessary, it's essential, yes, but you've learned how to do that. My problem is not about what else you have learned. My problem is with what you haven't learned, but you should have. I mean, how can we do this to ourselves, folks? How come it's not in the national curriculum? I don't get it. At the age of 6 or 7, a child can understand these concepts. Sunit and Sopaka were only 6 or 7 by the time the Buddha explained the Dhamma to them. And they got it. What education did they have? They were considered the scum of the earth, the lowest class, the lowest caste. It was forbidden for them to learn. They didn't even know the alphabet. But the Buddha spoke to them and they understood. As I'm saying, this is not rocket science. We send our children to the best of universities out there so that they can learn rocket science. But how many parents are willing to send their child to a monastery? Not for 3 years, but for 3 days, I ask. It takes you good 3 or 4 years to get a degree in something useless. Forgive me for saying it, putting it so bluntly, because I myself walked that path. Useless because I cannot take that with me to my next life, and neither can it help me achieve happiness. It helps me make my life comfortable, I get that. Because of the things I learned at university, I'm today able to do stuff at the monastery. I learned IT. So the whole IT setup at the monastery, I was able to help design and implement and all that with help from other monks as well who come from similar backgrounds. Yes, I get all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I think you understand me. I'm talking about this happiness that we all seek, the truth that we all seek, the thing that finally fulfills us, that makes us feel like it was worth having lived. How many people on their deathbed would rather have done a few more degrees? You ask a man who's on their deathbed, what would you rather have done more of? Another PhD. You think they're going to say that? What are your regrets not having done a PhD? Do you think the man is going to say that? He's on his deathbed. Just imagine that situation. Imagine yourself, if you can, in that situation. And someone asks you, you're on your deathbed, what are your regrets? Not having completed my master's. Seriously? Here's what you will be saying. I'm still not happy. I can't leave the people that I care about behind. There are things that I want to see, there are things that I want to eat, there are things that I want to smell and have, and I can't be without them. But alas, I have no choice but to go now. Who can save me now? And I feel like there's a gaping wound in my chest, and it hurts so badly. My children are stood around me, but they can't stop me. They're holding on to my hand so dearly, but they can't catch me when I leave. They can't stop me from dying. So what am I going to do? I only have a couple more moments, and then what happens next? I'm helpless. This is how everyone feels on their deathbed. So their regret will be not having learned how to leave before the time comes. Folks, this is the inevitable truth. I wish it were different. If I could rewrite the rules, I would do it in your favor. But no. The scores have been settled. The rule book has been written. It's done and dusted. All we can do now is play by it. Suffering is your own making. You can choose to stop it if you want to. But please do understand that Sunatha itself is only the start. Dhareta is only halfway. But 90% of your salvation is the third part. Only 10% is Sunatha and Dhareta. The whole 90% of it is your practice. The sooner you start, the better it's going to be for you. One of these days you might realize this truth. One of these days you might, settle everything and prepare yourself to become a Sila Shravika, let's just say. But by that time you say, Swaminatha, I know what to do now, I've got everything sorted now, but I wish I had another 40 years. Can you give me an extra lease extension? What can I do then? I don't have a magic wand that extends your lease. You are born with whatever you are born with, and that's it. That's all you're going to have. The same applies for me. From time to time I remind you of this inevitable death that is just around the corner, because I need you to know that it's there, because no one else talks to you about it. It's not like I have some morbid fascination with death or something, but I have to remind you because it's the obvious thing that people forget, and even when they go to a funeral, everyone's around the dead body thinking, sin, no? Everyone is sinning no about the person who's dead. That person's already gone. No one's thinking about the same is going to happen to me, and who knows whether I might even be able to leave this funeral alive. So don't hide behind the veil of a comfortable life which you might have afforded to yourselves by this point. I know you worked hard, folks. I know you worked extra long hours. You worked on your education. You worked on your degrees. You worked on your job. You worked on your business. You worked on this, that, and the other. You worked hard on building up a family. You worked on your qualifications. You worked on your certifications. You worked on this, that, and the other. Yes, I understand all that. But now don't rest on your laurels. Don't think to yourself that it's all done now. I'm happy. I'm settled. I've got my pension planned out. It's all tickety-boo. I've got deposits in the bank. It's going to be keeping me a good interest, right? My children are there. They'll look after me when I'm older, right? They've got some maids I can pay for, right? Remember, that's not what you were born for. None of the above are things you hadn't done before. That's why they come to you like second nature. They're just repeating old stuff. History repeating itself. I'll tell you one thing you hadn't done before. Walking up this path. That you've never done before. Never before have you been a Sotapanna. Never before have you been a Sakrudagami. Never before have you been an Anagami. And never before have you been an Arahant. For the whole of samsara, you only get to do it once. Everything else, whether you do it right or wrong, you can do it again. Except for one. But that's the one thing that people don't have the time for. That's why this noble association is essential. It's not optional, I tell you. That's why I speak so vehemently about this and with so much passion about this, because I understand the influence that these noble associations have on my life, ladies and gentlemen. If I was just given the Dhamma and said practice it, I would not be where I am today. If I was just given the Dhamma and said there's something called Nibbāna, here's the Dhamma, read a few books, right, and do it on your own. DIY, DIY Nibbāna is only for Buddhas. For everyone else, you need noble association. Do you not recall when Venerable Ananda asks the Buddha, Venerable Sir, is it not half of the sasana that's dependent on noble association? What did the Buddha say? Ananda, never utter these words again, not in my presence. Because nothing could be further from the truth. Because it is not half of this sasana, but the entirety of this sasana is dependent on noble association. What he meant was this. Here's where you start. Here's where you end. What do you need to have all the way along the track? Noble associates. Noble friends. Kalyana Mitra. That's why in the Mahamangala Sutta it says, I can't remember now the Pali, please forgive me. But what it means is to pick the right place to live. To be in the right place. It'll come to me in a moment. Anyone? Thank you. Patirupadesa vasocha. Pubbheta kata punyata. To be someone who has prior merits. To be someone who is meritorious. That's why we always encourage you to do merits. And Patirupa says, desa vasocha. Pick a place that is conducive to your salvation. That is one of the Mahamangala. The great fortunes. That is one of the great fortunes, to be in the association of noble ones. Noble ones are not noble by birth, ladies and gentlemen. Noble ones are noble by their understanding of the Dhamma. It is by wisdom one attains to nobility. Not by the money they have in the bank, or by their creed, or by their race, or by the parents that they were born to. That's why it doesn't matter what your origins are. What matters is what you're doing right now and where you're heading. That's what determines your nobility. I don't care about who you were born to, or where you were born, or who your parents are, what your race is, how wealthy you are. We don't care about that. But what you're doing right now, where your mind is right now, what your thoughts entail. Are you compassionate towards others? Are you contemplative of the truths of the world? Are you striving to understand anicca, dukkha and anatta? The three characteristics of this entire universe of existence. And are you doing what you need to do so that you can better understand the truths, which is earning merits? Being kind, being gentle, being compassionate, being humble. Striving to be selfless. Are you of that temperament? Are you of that nature? These are the things that determine your nobility. Why do you do such things? Because you have a why here. Your why is Nibbāna. It is this and what you're doing right now that determines whether you're a noble one. Not where you were before you started. So I wanted to explain to you why Venerable Ratanasadara Thero chose the life of monkhood. It's not the robe that he picked. It's not that. It's not the architecture of the kuti that he lives in. It's not that. It's who he spends his day with. That's what he picked. It's who he spends his afternoons with. It's who he spends his evenings with. And it's who he spends his nights with. That's what he picked. How shrewd and how clever must one be? To be so picky about who someone spends his 24/7 with. Because he used to be someone who used to listen to a sermon every once in a while, and every now and then, once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. But then he realized, at this rate, I will attain Nibbana. Maybe they met the Buddha's time. But he wanted it to happen now, he wanted it to happen then. Once again, please don't feel that I'm either, I'm not trying to twist your arm or asking you to bend backwards. This is not me suggesting that all of you should come to this asana, because there's no point in me even suggesting something like that, because I know you won't, for starters. But then I also know that some of you can't. But then there are those who can. To those who can, I suggest you don't delay that. Because, this is something I learned even when I was studying personal development. If you want to do something, do it now. If you procrastinate, if you keep postponing things, then whatever it is you want to do that's going to yield you something good, you're only delaying that. What's the point? The sooner you become an arahant, the longer you can enjoy being an arahant, right? You can become an arahant just a moment before your last moment being alive, but then, that's just one chitta being an arahant. But what if you could become an arahant in the next 10 years? And you have another 20 to go? What if you have another 30 to go? The Buddha says that if you are diligent with your practice and so aware about your thoughts and always are contemplative about anicca, dukkha and anatta, in 7 days you can make this happen. That's just on another level. That sort of commitment. Even I'm not a par with that. It's been more than 7 years since I ordained. But then he says, right, if not in 7 days, at least in 7 years you can achieve this. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Are you waiting until you're great? Maybe a great-grandmother? Or a great-grandfather? Don't wait until you're great to start. Start and then you will become great. Start where you are. And do what you can, folks. But if you're doing what you can now, always, every day ask yourself, can I do a little bit more? Is it just Sunday mornings? Can I not give another half a day? Not on my behalf. I don't get paid more because you practice Nibbāna more. You think I do? I don't get paid more. How much do I get paid now? Well, there you go, then I don't get paid more. How much is more of zero? More of zeros is just more zeros. That's how much I get paid. I don't get paid more because you do more Nibbāna, but that's the payment that you need for all your hard work and toiling in samsara. So, if you can join the various programs that we have at the monastery as a Shravaka, Vesi, right? These programs have been designed for people like yourselves. I cannot prescribe because it would not be fair for me to do so, but I can only inform, inspire, I can motivate you, but I can't do on your behalf. I can't settle all your bills and settle all your family scores and relationships and all that and say, right, let me work it all out for you. Now, come on, come with me to the monastery. I can't do that, obviously, because there are too many of you and your personal circumstances would be different from one another. But whatever that situation might be, if it's weekends you can do, there are weekend programs. If it's weekdays you can do, there are weekday programs. If it's only 1 day a week you can do, there's a 1 day a week program. Why? I mean, when you come there, we cook, we feed, we wash. The toilets we wash. I wash sometimes the toilets. I do it happily and gladly. To wash a toilet that someone uses because they want to get to Nibbana, do you not realize how meritorious that is? They might call me the Nayakahandru of the monastery, but I consider myself everyone's servant. That's my role at the monastery, to be everyone's servant, to serve everyone. Make sure everyone's doing well and make sure everyone's looked after and make sure everyone feels at home. And everything's happening as it should. So you'll find me in the kitchen, you'll find me in the toilets, you'll find me in the Dhamma hall, you'll find me here, you'll find me there. But all of this is to create opportunities so that you can benefit while this Buddha Sasana is still thriving. The Buddha Sasana has 2 expiry dates, don't forget. What are they? One is in another 2,500 years. The other? Your death. The Buddha Sasana has 2 expiry dates. Whichever comes first. Like how they write in contracts. Either in 6 months' time or when the person dies, whichever comes first. In the same way, the Buddha Sasana has 2 expiry dates. Either in 2,500 years, if you live that long, or by the time you're dead. So I'm saying, don't procrastinate, don't delay, don't put it to tomorrow. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing today, not tomorrow. If it's worth doing tomorrow, then trust me, it's not worth doing at all. Because then you don't have a burning desire to do it today, which means you're not bought in. That's what it means. You don't need it as much, then let it be. Let someone else work on that. Because you won't get results until you start. I say these things, I know, sometimes I wonder, on my way back home, I'm thinking to myself, was I too harsh? Did I push them too much? My conscience asks me, will they come again? That last part I don't mind personally, because I only came here to preach to 10 people. I didn't realize that this hall was going to be full of 200 or more people. I didn't expect this. I thought 10 people might come, maybe in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years' time, it might become 15. That's what I thought. This is for you, folks. This appeal is on your behalf. This appeal is on your behalf. I know one thing for certain, when you leave these premises, no one's going to talk to you about this stuff. Everyone will come to you asking for their personal favors. You know what you are, right? What paper? It comes in 2 flavors. One is tissue. The other, you know what it is. People will look to you because they want something from you. And you can't blame them for that because their minds are vexed all the time. So when someone's vexed, all they can think about is how they can come out of their own vexation. So if you have something to offer them, then that is what they'll want from you, not your salvation. Do you think the president of this country, I don't mean particularly this particular president of this country at any time, do you think he or she would want all of you to attain Nibbana? What do you think? Let's have an intellectual discussion about that. Tell me, do you think the president of this country, who's supposed to be our father, right? Technically speaking, our father, he's citizen number 1. right? So he's the supreme citizen of this nation. He or she. Do you think he or she would want all of you, his citizens, to attain Nibbana? Why not? Without subjects, how can there be a ruler? If he wants to be president, then there have to be people to preside over. Right? Otherwise, how could I feel that I am president if none of you elect me? And if none of you are loyal to me, if none of you look up to me and call me President, Sir, His Excellency, and if you don't call me that, if you don't talk to me like that, then how would I feel and how would I satisfy my ego? My presidential ego. How would I satisfy that? So for me to feel that, you have all got to be here. You can't all be flying off to Nibbana. You have another thing coming. What if I want to be a teacher? Say I want to be a science teacher. Let's say I really enjoy being a science teacher. Right? That's what I want to do in my life, and the thing that makes me happiest is to be a science teacher. Now, as a science teacher, would I want all my students to attain Nibbana and go to Paranibbana? What would happen then? How can I be a teacher if there are no students to teach? What if I want to be a doctor? Then how can I say, thank you for coming, come again? Name one profession there is out there that want all of you to attain Paranibbana. As in go to extinction. Name one profession out there. There's only one. Yes. Their very name means that. Sangha means to eradicate ignorance and attachment. That's what Sangha means. They are the only people who wish for your extinction because they wish that for themselves as well. Because wherever there is existence, there is suffering. So I urge you and I appeal to you on your behalf, ladies and gentlemen. Sunatha is good, but please don't stop there. Dhareta is also good, but that's not enough. Charata is the most crucial part of your practice. Without that, nothing's going to happen. How can you do that? Every day. As much as you can, practice. Contemplate. If you haven't understood yet what it is you have to contemplate, then spend as much of your week trying to listen to the sermons, so you can understand what it is you have to practice. Remember, unless you're on the path, there's no point in putting your foot on the pedal. You're not going to make any movement. There's going to be no traction. Just energy spent, that's all. So, week on week, we will explain to you what anicca, dukkha and anatta are. But remember, that's not enough. Because here you can only do the first and the second part. You can do a little bit of charata, but only for 2.5 hours. That's it. That's all the charata you can do here. But on the way back home, if you stop by a kottu kade, right? Or you go to the supermarket, you buy something, and then on the way back home, you're munching some crisps or bar chocolate or taking a drink or whatever, and you're enjoying it and enjoying the delight and the sensuality of all that. Then the whole week, all charata you've done is the 2.5 hours that you were here listening to the sermon. It's not fair, I know. But it wasn't me who made the rules. It's not fair. It's not fair when you have to run the country. It's not fair when you have to run the schools. you have to teach there, you have to run the organizations which you're responsible for. It's not fair when you have people who work under you and people who work for you, and you have to pay their wages and you have to look after them. You have the doctors and the nurses who make sure the patients are treated. I know, it's you who do all that. So it's not fair. I get it. I get it. You have to run the post offices, you have to run the police stations, you have to run the supermarkets, you have to run the hospitals, you have to run the schools, you have to run the institutions, you have to run the banks, you have to run the law firms. Research has to go on. Inventions have to be made. The roads have to be paved and the streets have to be lighted or lit. You have to do all that. I get it. It's not fair for me to ask you to do this. Is it? It's not fair, right? Isn't it? When you have to do all that, it's not fair for me to ask you to do this, is it? What do you say? Because if you all come and do this, who's going to run the schools? Isn't it? If you all come and join this, get yourselves on the track in the association of noble ones on the way to Nibbana, then who's going to run the schools? Who's going to man the police stations? Who's going to keep the country safe? Who's going to join the forces? Who's going to become president? Who's going to be the shopkeepers and the supermarket assistants? Who's going to fly the aeroplanes? And you can't just have a pilot, you need attendants as well. Who's going to stand at the check-in gates? And at the checkouts at the supermarkets? Who's going to do all that? That's why you're not coming here, right? So I know, it's very unfair. So what I'm suggesting here is very unfair. This is a very unfair proposal. So, with hand on heart, my apologies. Please accept my humble apology for making such an unfair proposal to you, for requesting you to come and join and be in the presence of noble ones, because if you do that, you will have no choice but to get to Nibbana. Because they will fight life and limb to keep you on track, as a mother looks after her own child. As a mother looks after her own child, they will guide you to your Nibbana, to your salvation. But then if you all join the Sila Shravaka, Shravika, Vesi and Anagarika and became monks, then only God knows what would happen to this country. So I understand. Ultimately, I am the one who has to understand. So now, Sunata Dhareta. What a waste of a sermon. I was trying to help you understand something. In the end, I realized that I am the one who has to understand. Oh, let's leave it there then, shall we? I have one other thing I want to add today. What you saw today with Venerable Ratanasara Thero, it makes me very proud to have him come up here on stage and talk to you with confidence. Like I said, English is not his first tongue, and he put in a lot of work to express his ideas, his sentiments and thoughts with an audience and with a language that you are familiar with, but not him. So he made that effort on your behalf. I think you all appreciate that. But that's not enough. It's not enough just to come up here and give a myself speech, is it? You need to be convinced. You need conviction. You need to be sold the Dhamma. To be sold the Dhamma, you need to be able to visualize the benefits you get from it, the suffering that you have to endure without it. And I have to almost make you walk through the ups and downs of life while you are physically still sat here. And create those mental images in your mind. So that requires a certain level of proficiency and fluency. Not just in the language that you speak, but in many other languages, because if you can speak to a man in his own tongue, then it goes to his heart. Because it's where it's there you make decisions. The mind thinks, but the heart decides. That's the way it works. And that's why we have a program called Little Britain at our monastery. Aptly named Little Britain. What we have tried to do there is to create an immersive environment. I'm thankful for the immersive environment that I had when I was growing up. Had I merely been schooled in, let's say, a national school in Sri Lanka, I would not have had this experience. But my parents, for whatever reason, decided that I was to spend my youthful years in another country, and so they took me, and it was there I picked up the language to the extent to which I can speak it and communicate with it now. So for those opportunities, I'm very grateful. Grateful because now I can give the gift of Dhamma to many millions. Just imagine if Sinhala was all I spoke. 20 million is the population of our country, but not everyone in Sri Lanka speaks Sinhalese either. So this gift would be limited to a very few. But now, armed with the skill that I have been able to acquire thanks to my teachers and the environment in which I was able to grow up, I'm now able to take this language and use it as a weapon to share the gift of Dhamma throughout the world. So at Little Britain, that's what we strive to do. Because there are some children amongst us who are very gifted. Your children I'm talking about. Children that you have given to this asana. There are some who are very good with languages. There are some children who learn 3, 4, 5 languages and they're only 10 years old. And in each language they have begun to show skill. So that kind of shows us, it's probably something that they had done in previous lives as well. Some are born with that talent. But English is, of course, the main international language. So unless you have that, that's the passport, so to speak, to the rest of the world. I think you understand. And this sermon is also only has been made possible because there's a Swamin Wahanse who comes here who can deliver his understanding in a language that you're comfortable with. So that is what we try to do with Little Britain. So what we have as Little Britain currently at the monastery is a kuti that we have used previously to have our monks resident, a few of them, 4 or 5. And there we have the children who, in that environment, we have tried to create an immersive environment there. So there's a bit of a library, and we teach them in English. It's compulsory that they communicate in English. There are times when, like, maybe they have a personal issue, and then they have to express that in English. There's not a choice, unless it's really, really, really tough. And then we give them the option of speaking in Sinhalese, but other than that, they have to try and speak in English. But now our numbers have kept on growing, and now that space that we have there has not been sufficient to accommodate them. So we have to expand. This program I'm talking about, Little Britain, that place has to expand so that we can have more children who come there and equip them with the language skills that are required so that by 2050, as Mr. Arthur C. Clarke once prophesied, Buddhism can become a philosophy I don't like to use the word religion, a philosophy that makes sense and the whole world accepts, or the majority of the world accepts. So let's not call it Buddhism, but Buddhist philosophy. This is what we talk about, the truths. So for that, we have to expand the capacity that we have there. So it's something that's been lingering in my mind for some time as to how we can do that. A couple of weeks ago, when I met up with, let's call them the organizing team of the Dharmishta Rajagirians, this program, but they don't like me to call them organizing committee because they say everyone's organizing. So Swaminatha, don't just call us organizing team. It's everyone, not just 2 or 3 of us. But just for reference, I'll call them the organizing team. So I had this idea that how about, as individuals who have benefited mostly so far, right, from this program having been delivered in English, and our monks and our people being able to speak in English, the proposal that I had was, as it's being the 100th sermon and all that, how about we gift a space for people at the monastery, especially our Noble Hearts children and our 18 Minus children, the environment, so that they can continue to practice and learn English with the Dhamma, so that they can take the gift of Dhamma throughout the whole world in the next few years. And that could be a project that is done by the Dharmishta Rajagirians. So it's an idea that occurred to me as I was having a conversation with them a couple of weeks ago, and they liked the idea. They said, Swaminatha, personally they said, I think if you talk to our people, they'd be happy to support that. So I contemplated whether it would be appropriate, but then I realized, as people and individuals who have actually benefited from us being able to communicate this message in English, I think you understand the value of it. Perhaps not so much if I spoke to another audience, but I think you understand the value of it. So because you understand the value of it, this is an invitation to you to be part of that. And so let's take whatever time we need. It doesn't have to be done by tomorrow, because what we need is now more capacity so that we can take in more students, and they keep on coming, folks. I don't know where these children are coming from. It's like every time Guru Hamdra opens his mouth, there are people queued up outside the gate, especially little ones, children who we are going to put on here sooner rather than later. But they're not doing it only on their behalf, but the sooner we put them there, by the time they reach 20s, 30s, they are well equipped with not only the Dhamma, but also with the language skills, so that they can start sharing this Dhamma throughout the world. Mahinda Handro and Bakula Handro, they have been doing a wonderful service, traveling to Australia and several other countries. We have already started receiving invitations from Japan, China, Korea, South Africa, too many now that we can't actually cater with the number of monks that we have who can actually communicate well enough in English. So that means we have to produce more. So it's not just enough to teach them the Dhamma, they have to learn the language. And that, I believe, can only be done, properly done, if you create an immersive environment for that. So then we have separate programs for them. Every program that we do in Sinhalese is also done in English. In the future, we will also have an immersive environment for another language, Hindi. There are many people in our neighboring country, the country that they believe gifted us the Buddha. Buddhism is almost lost. Recently I had the opportunity to go there one. Many people don't recognize us as monks. And I'm surprised. This is the land of the Buddha, so they say, but they see a robe and they're like, who are you? They call all of us sannyasis. In other words, ascetics, people who've given up a lay life, but all Brahmins and hermits and all of them are in this one category. The question that often we get is, why don't you wear slippers? And why don't you get married? Why don't you drive? Why don't you do jobs? And these questions. no fault of theirs. It just means that, they don't know Buddhism. But now it's the world's largest population, India. Guru Handro himself has been learning Hindi, Telugu, so 2 languages spoken in India, and he's been encouraging many other monks to pick up several more languages. So we are busy learning a lot of languages at the monastery, but with each language that we teach our children and our people, English also has to be coupled with that, because otherwise you can't get very far. I think you all understand that. So that is why we have this immersive environment, and we want to do that for the benefit of the world. So I really don't want you to think that this is me making a request on my behalf or on behalf of the monastery. Please don't do that. If you think that that is what it is, then please don't get involved. It is really on behalf of everyone whose hearts and minds we have to heal. People like yourselves who have benefited from the Dhamma being available in English. But now it's time we take it to the rest of the world. So either come and join us, be one of us. But if you're struggling to do that yet, support us. What I want you is to be part of this mission. Filling my arms full is not what I'm asking you to do. Help me with my mission. That I can't do alone. Help me with the purpose that we are about. That I can't do alone. Not even the Buddha could do it alone. So, this is my call. So I invite you, if you like, that can be an opportunity for the Rajagiriya group to give to the Sri Sambuddha Sasana a place where children now and in the future can be accommodated, where they are given an immersive environment in English so that they can learn the language and take the Dhamma far and wide. And you will all be able to rejoice in those merits now and into the future. So if there are any who are interested in that, we'll make a sheet of paper available on where you can just drop down your details. Oh no, actually, you know what we'll do? We'll send you a link to the WhatsApp group. Right? Because no one needs to know that you got involved, and no one needs to know that you didn't get involved. That's your personal choice. I think that's better. So we'll send you a link. It'll be on the WhatsApp group. Just click on that, and in there you can fill in some basic details. And then once you have expressed your interest to get involved, then we'll come back to you and ask you how you can be involved in that. Okay? So please do understand that this is not a mandatory call. You can keep coming to the sermons, whether you do it or not. It is not for me. I think you understand that, right? There's nothing I want from you, really. You have done enough for me. Like Swami Minache said, having been parents to me in my previous lives in Sansara is more than enough. Now I'm just paying my debts to you. So that's more than enough. This is not for me, this is not for an individual, this is not for the monastery even, this is actually for the whole world, for humanity. With that in heart, let's do this. Okay, right, let's leave it there then. We'll do the merit transfer and bring the sermon to a close. Let us all take a moment then to transfer the merits that we have all acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, by creating a conducive environment for all to come along and practice, by inviting the Swami Maharaj to deliver the sermon, as well as listening to the sermon itself and contemplating the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer all these merits that we have acquired to all those who are deserving of it. First and foremost, let us transfer these merits to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas, who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all monks and nuns resident throughout the world including in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us also transfer these merits to the Mahanayaka Theras, the Anunayaka Theras of all the chapters throughout the world who have dedicated their lives to the noble path, and on behalf of the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us also transfer this message to my teacher Guru Swami Mahanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the Anagarikas and Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us take a moment to transfer this message to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these talks, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them, as well as those who have contributed to the Sambuddha Sasana, be that by offering alms, shelter, robes and medicines, as well as your know-how, and those who continue to extend their well wishes. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employers and our employees, our teachers, our well-wishers, as well as anyone and everyone who have helped us, supported us and assisted us in any way, shape or form possible and available to them. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits may they also be freed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to the Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who have always kept a watchful eye over us, as well as helped preserve the Sambuddha Sasana and kept us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer this message to those who passed away in our name, our forefathers, our ancestors, our loved ones, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life as we do. Let us also transfer this message to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrifice their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. Let us also transfer these messages to those who have lost their lives in natural disasters and calamities such as tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics and so on. Reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara, they may all have been mothers and fathers to us, and so with an abundance of loving kindness and compassion towards all of them, let us transfer all the merits that we have acquired to all, and may by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of arahants on this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who's helped make this program a success become a Rahatan Mahanse or an Arahat Theranin Mahanse in this very life itself and in the era of the Sri Sambuddha Sasana itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Rajagiriya midetva dveshaginneng midetva mohaginneng midetva Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhitatara vetva raga gini niveva dvesha gini niveva moha gini niveva nivan sapa labeva nivan sapa labeva nivan sapa labeva තුන්රුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බෙලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. සාදු සාදු සාදු.